So, welcome to each of you. Welcome on behalf of the Overtown Children and Youth Coalition, whose purpose is to convene, network, leverage, scale, impact the community of Overtown. Today, we are here with Commissioner Bovo. Tonight's call will be moderated by Kerry-Ann. This meeting will be live streamed to Facebook, and this session will also be recorded. We hope that you will join us for our calls with candidate Gypsy Metellus on tomorrow, and on Tuesday, our call with Commissioner Daniela Levine Cava. Thank you for coming. Thank you for this evening. And I will now turn it over to you, Kerry-Ann.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that, Tina. Certainly welcome Commissioner Bovo for taking some time to be with us this afternoon, this evening. We see you're on the move. I can imagine that countdown to Election Day, and you are constantly on the move. I hope you have some snacks in your back pocket to keep the energy up while you're on the move today, but thanks for taking the time to be with us. And we know we only have you until 6:45. My name is Kerry-Ann Royes. I'm President CEO of your YWCA South Florida, whose mission it is to eliminate racism and empower women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. We've been for over 100 years and have enjoyed quite a bit of support from our commission. And we continue to look forward to working with our entire commission. So thanks again, Commissioner Bovo. We're so happy to have you. So we have some questions. Obviously, I'm wearing two hats tonight as a partner of Overtown Youth Coalition, as well as a CEO of YWCA. So we're gonna right to it. You'll have 2 minutes for each question so that we could get to as many as we possibly can.
Very well.
Thank you so much again. Since 2011, you've represented District 13, which includes Hialeah, Miami Lakes, Palm Springs North, and neighboring areas of unincorporated Miami-Dade. Tell us about one major accomplishment that you are most proud of during your term.
Well, are we talking about commission, or are we talking about while I was a city council member or a state representative? Because I've served that area in
Let's go with commission.
I think the piece of legislation that I'm probably most proud of is a piece of legislation that many won't ever see or feel. And that is to be able to create the rapid transit zones in Miami-Dade County that are going to help us with the funding mechanisms we need to address the issues of transit in Miami-Dade County. In the future, when we are able to deliver the promised transportation to the north end of our county, south end of our county, east and west in our county, it'll be because of the funding mechanisms that we were able to create as chairman of transportation and then as the chair of the transportation committee. For me, it was fundamental because it's one of those kind of pieces of legislation that doesn't get a lot of fanfare, a lot of people won't know about, but it does address a lot of infrastructure needs in our community. And these infrastructure needs are paramount, not only to create jobs, but move us in a way that we're not as car dependent in the future. So for me, being able to pass that piece of legislation with the unanimous support of my board members is for me significant in a bigger picture for all of us in Miami-Dade.
Thank you very much. I will say that's the one thing that I don't think any of us really miss right now is the traffic. And so we will we look forward to finally being able to feel the outcome of those measures. I'm going to turn our attentions a little bit to youth and children issues. In reviewing your plan to strengthen opportunities for Miami's Black community, and in your youth section specifically published on your website, we didn't notice much talk about an investment in community-based organizations that specifically youth. OCYC is a membership organization of CBOs like ourselves dedicated to improving the lives of children and youth. Where do you stand on investing in positive youth development outside of county parks and recreation and through MDS, which already has some source of tax-based funding?
Well, let's always remind ourselves that we put $16 million of county tax dollars into CBO programming. And one of the things I've tried to do as a board member is to make sure that those programs are being run efficiently and that the dollars that are going into those programs are going into the actual service that needs to be provided. In many instances, what we've seen is that a lot of these programs receive funds with very, very little accountability. And what I wanted to strive for was not just fiscal responsibility, but to do it in a way where the money that's being invested goes to actually helping people in our community. Look, I'm a supporter of any program out there that is going to help our youth do a couple of things. One, builds values, programs that help guide them, help create the job skills necessary for those that may necessarily not go to college, because I understand that not everybody either goes to college or wants to go to college. And I think it's important that we invest early on. Commissioner Suarez and I had worked on issues that were collaborative in nature to create summer programming, job programming for youth. We wanted to make sure that in the summer months, they weren't just hanging out at home, that they had places in order for them to be able to get the job skills necessary. And I've been a supporter of that, not just in the Board of County Commission, but even as far back as the city of Hialeah, that we support a lot of youth summer programs to make sure that our kids were having, access to not just vocational training, but access to our programming and the parks programs, so that, you can start building these fundamentals that I think go long term into building good, not just good values, but also good citizens in our community. More investment of that is not a bad thing, to be perfectly honest with you. Although my platform has been to make sure that we support and fund the core services that county government has been created to do. I am wary when we start creating a county government that tries to be everything to everybody. And sometimes that's when we lead ourselves to monumental failures.
Okay, thank you for that answer, and for filling in some holes there on your support to youth and children's services. Could you tell us a little bit more about maybe instances where you talked about accountability? And I will say, as a CBO that's funded by the county, there's tons of accountability in the work that we do. So that's definitely resonated with CBOs like ourselves. What are 3 instances outside of accountability where you feel that you've invested in other policies or measures where children and youth will be at the center of your support as commissioner?
Well, I've supported a lot of programs for disadvantaged children, physically disadvantaged children in our community, not just our autism program, cerebral palsy. I've been a big supporter of those programs, and not just with contributions, but with physical labor. I feel strongly about those programs and to be able to help. I've supported Chapman Partnership and its family programs, where we have many families that impact a lot of young children with homelessness. And I've been able to support their programs, again, not just with money, but with physical labor, supporting their efforts. I think we can't tolerate in our community, and we shouldn't tolerate those children that are left behind. I don't have a wealth of knowledge of work in non-for-profit organizations, other than giving of my talent and time to be able to support these programs. And also, on a personal level, I've coached not only basketball, I've coached baseball at youth levels. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure the sun's not hitting you guys from behind me now. I've supported youth leagues with my time, actually coaching youth leagues, to be involved in mentoring young minds and young children, teaching the value of sports and team building, which I think ultimately leads to a lot of great outcomes as they become adults.
So, along those lines, we have childcare centers closing left and right post-COVID. What do you think what are your hopes to support childcare centers that are closing? It's going to be a big problem when we get past this spike and, more of our economy starts to open up and a lot of our childcare centers have disappeared. What are your plans?
Yeah, look, we've used a lot of the CARES Act money that's come from the federal government to support a lot of these programs, child care, adult care also. And I think that's a wise investment to keep them afloat as much as possible. And they are fundamental, just like our public school education system is fundamental in order to be able to open up our economy. And I think one of the things as mayor one of the first things I want to do as mayor is start to collaborate with a lot of the providers, business owners, in a way that we start opening up businesses in our community. To me, the best stimulus plan, the best plan for our community is to get people back to work. You know, I represent a lot of folks in my community have gone 7 months without working. Our tourism industry has been racked. Obviously, people are not going to travel until they feel safe and sound. So one of the things I think we should do, and I'm going to do, is work with business owners and child care providers, which in essence are business owners also, and try to collaborate with them so they could tell us, how do they open up safely? How do they take care of their customers? How do they take care of their children? How do they take care of their employees? And then as government, I think we should be enforcing what they develop. And obviously that development plan will have some medical input so that we make sure we're covering all angles. But I think, you know, to me, if we're going to live with this virus, perhaps for the next 6 months to a year, if not longer, if this is going to be part of our lives, then we're going to need to adapt as a society, because I don't think the way we're doing it right now is sustainable long term. There is not enough money in the county coffers in order for us to be able to sustain all the businesses that have been impacted. And thank God really for that federal money that has poured in, but that federal money is not going to be there forever either. And then we're going to need to learn how to live with the virus and then how to do it in a safe way.
You know, you kind of answered a little bit of my next question, which just doesn't just come from business owners, but it comes from those like ourselves. We serve over 350 kids and their families, preschoolers, Head Start, early Head Start a day. And sometimes with everything that's happening with the COVID numbers on the rise, you know, and we're really worried that we may be moving too fast. Do you think that we're moving too fast?
Too fast to do what?
To reopen.
Well, I could tell you, I've got folks right now that have gone without work for 7 months, and they will tell me we're not moving fast enough. And what I'm proposing is that we work in a way where we bring the business owners and the caregivers to the table. Instead of government dictating to them how we're gonna proceed, I think what we should be doing is collaborating. And that way we could have enforceable rules that have had buy-in from the business owners. You know, to me, you know, one of the things that we're going to probably revisit years from now is how did we handle the COVID-19 and how did we react to it? You know, did we close everything too quickly? Should we have been enforcing mask rules early on? You know, social distancing early on? But this closing down of our economy has had some consequences. Uptick in phone calls to our suicide hotline. We've had uptick in calls to our domestic violence. The mental health toll in our community, I think we're just scratching the surface right now, how much of it's impacted. And it's all due to a lot of people not being able to go back to work. You know, we've had businesses that have disappeared forever. And while I want to be mindful of the health of our community, at the same time, I got to be mindful of the economic. And I don't see why we can't do both at the same time.
Well, that's certainly something we'd love to see how you will figure out, because we have had several meetings collectively and we've reopened. Many of us have pretty safely, but continue to close whenever there's a case that pops up, and it does pop up. But it's
Kerry-Ann, I would tell you that we need to be mindful that if we're going to live with a virus for 6 months to a year, let's assume that. I would rather have a conversation with you and others like you so that you could tell me how can you operate in safe ways and then enforce that and collaborate with you, instead of me just dictating, close your doors. Because closing your door has a ripple effect, not just on those that are providing the service directly, but I think also has a ripple effect on the customers. You know, a parent that needs to work and needs a safe place to put their child would probably feel safer if you created the plans. And in fact, I'll go a step further. I'm willing to put a decal on your door that says you've complied with all COVID requirements, whether that is UV lighting in your air duct system, whether it's cleanliness, whether it's taking temperatures, whether it's wearing gloves, mask indoor. You know, I'm willing to cooperate with you and have you kind of design how best way to keep your customers, and have a medical person maybe even sign off on it. But if we're going to live with the virus, I will tell you, going from increase in cases, close everything, dip in cases, open everything, I don't think that's sustainable and unrealistic, to be honest with you.
So some good points as well as some concerning points for all of us, because COVID is very real, and we're all trying to, do the very best that we can in safe ways while protecting the people that we love and the people who work for us, many of whom are the Alice population, also living paycheck to paycheck and making the choice to show up as essential workers, as you just mentioned, in many of these youth service programs and childcare programs. So we would appreciate any support that we get moving into the future. I want to turn our attentions a little bit to housing. Obviously, this has continued to be a hot topic. Affordable housing is always a concern, and it's even a growing concern here in South Florida, especially post-COVID. How will you use your powers in your office to help people stay in their homes and to have people people with lower incomes afford to live in Miami-Dade County, something I'm sure that you've been asked several times?
Yeah, it's if we weren't talking about COVID, transportation and housing would probably be the two topics that we would have been spending all our time talking. And unfortunately,
Definitely.
COVID is, it's eating up all this. Look, I think there's a couple of things that we could do. Let me first start off on the base. We need to increase the supply of housing. This is a supply and demand situation. We have a huge demand. People keep moving into South Florida, and our demand for housing is very high, yet our supply has not met that demand. Therefore, the increase in pricing that you see across the board, and it's becoming very unaffordable. So I think there's a couple of things that we could do. One is we could look at land that the county owns and make that available for construction, but do it in a way where we entice developers by giving them more density, cutting the red tape, and even bringing utilities to the property line. All these are cost-saving measures for the contractor or the developer. What that does is it also brings a bargaining tool for us. If I give you the density, if I cut the red tape, if I'm giving you the land, if I'm giving you the utilities, I could then extract from them without forcing them, but I could extract from them, if you agree, of the extra density I give you, I'm going to want a percentage of that density to go to workforce and low-income housing. And I think that's a better way of us than trying to force developers to do it, because in many cases they won't participate in these kind of programs. But we do have land available, and that could be worth millions of dollars to a developer. So it's not that it's breaking their back, but on the contrary, it's giving us the units that we need in order to start helping some of in our community. Now, where we see potentials for gentrification, I want to work with the developers, where I want to grandfather people into their neighborhoods. If Ms. Fernandez has historically lived in a neighborhood and now it's being developed and they move her into a rental property, I want to freeze her rent at whatever she's been paying as long as she's alive. So therefore, that unit, once she passes on, that unit could go back to market rate, but at least we don't push a family out the door, which concerns me. I see a lot of development in the Overtown area. On one end, it's fantastic. On the other end, we know it's putting pressure on a lot of people to keep, especially those that are renting. The market rate starts affecting them, and they're going to look to move out of the area. We want to protect them, right? We want to make sure that they stay in their neighborhoods that they've lived all their lives.
Protecting them, and some would call rent control, are some definite measures that we would love to see. And I know YWCA recently was given 5 acres of land in Miami Gardens through the commission. And we're looking at developing that for affordable housing, and it is very challenging. The margins are extremely thin. Communities are very worried about gentrification. They're very worried about being pushed out. They're very worried about even the term affordable. Even though in many cases, we're talking about workforce, we're talking about our teachers, our firefighters, we're talking about our essential workers. So protecting enough housing, and I know there's been so much attention to affordable housing in the last few years, and we're still not at the stop that we need. So I hope as mayor, that continues to be one of your major priorities. Obviously, as you said, if we weren't talking about housing, we'd be talking about transportation or hurricanes or sea level rise, right? So it's one of the things that is definitely top of mind for South Floridians. In Overtown particularly, we have a homeless population that is growing. We're fully aware that the population did not originate here in Overtown, but seems to be disproportionately affected due to oversaturation of shelters, However, they have limited beds. There are lack of jobs, transportation to other neighborhoods and cities, and lots of mental health issues, drug issues. This is a reoccurring issue in our community and not necessarily connected to the pandemic, even though studies have shown that there will be a 45% increase. What strategic and holistic plans do you have to rectify this problem?
Yeah, all of it is very challenging and difficult. And, I should start off by what my philosophy is as far as what county government should be doing. And that's core services. That's what we engage our county government to do as taxpayers and residents and homeowners. Look, what we're seeing, I think, with the homeless situation, as you mentioned, one of them is oversaturation of facilities. We're also seeing where construction, particularly in the downtown areas, pushing homeless people to the margins where we haven't seen them before, and, I've identified areas in the downtown area where, 10 years ago, you didn't see a homeless person hanging out. Now you're seeing it. And that's a challenge on all of us. And we're going to have to figure out ways on how to keep supporting the programs that we have. We have, for a long time, I thought was the model of homelessness programs in the county and really in the nation. We've had others come and copy the programs that we have. How do we continue to feed those programs? I think a lot of the folks that are on the street put the strain on our mental health. I'm not a proponent of arresting people and incarcerating them for issues related to mental health. I'm looking forward to when Judge Leifman has his program up and open, that we could maybe help many of these individuals find the care and the support they need. We see a lot of veterans that have served our country, and it should be outrageous for any one of us to see somebody that was willing to put their life on the line to have to be sleeping, under a bridge someplace. And that should be unacceptable. The question for me will always be is how much of it can we afford as a community? We're going to get $100 million hit in our budget projected next year. It's going to be a challenge to be able to balance that budget, not cut services, and at the same time, not raise taxes. Because we need to also take into account many residents in our community, those that have been furloughed or without work now for 7 months, are going to have to carry a tax burden that, quite honestly, I don't know if how we're going to be able to help them. They haven't, they're the ones that have suffered the most in many cases from lack of income. So it's a lot of issues that are all on the table, which I would tell you, your county government and whoever says that the county government is equipped to handle it is just flat out pandering. We don't have the ability to assume all of it. We're going to have to work with the state. We're going to have to work with the federal government in order to help us with some of these issues. And how do we navigate them? To me, it's problematic and it's extremely concerning. And what we should be looking is look at places like New York, look at places like San Francisco and LA, and let's make sure we don't make the mistakes that they've made, where people are leaving those communities in droves because of the tax burden on the residents and trying to do everything for everybody. That's a dangerous and very slippery slope. And I do want to mention before I forget, I'm not in favor of rent control. Wherever rent control has been implemented, it has failed. And I'm not a proponent of rent control. That usually leads to slums. I am a proponent, though, of, like I said, using our land as leverage to be able to get good, not only low income, but workforce housing done, where we then could control that rent on our property, land that we own. But I'm not a favor of putting out rent control.
So clarified. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about diversity. Recently, over the summer, YWCA, we just wrapped our 21-day social justice and racial equity challenge, which was a community collective learning experience where over 5,000 people in South Florida kind of paused for a little while every day for 21 days to learn about the institutions and the history that lead and predicated the race issues that we see today. We looked at the issues of education, healthcare, voter rights, as well as now we're turning our attentions to economy. Do you feel that we have issues still rooted in Miami-Dade County around systemic racism? And if so, what are your plans to address them?
Well, I think we've done a lot as far as county government is concerned to address these issues. Historically, we've done everything we possibly can to be as inclusive as possible. I can't say the same for population in general. But wherever there's been an interaction with county government, we've tried to make sure that the laws that we and the ordinances and the resolutions that we pass are as inclusive as humanly possible, and frown upon those that try to either segregate or discriminate, and we shouldn't tolerate it. If you ask me if I personally have seen it, it's hard for me to say, but enough for somebody to acknowledge that it exists obligates me as a community leader to address it, and address it in a very vigorous kind of way. And we shouldn't tolerate it. Nobody that should be denied a job. Nobody should be denied income, opportunity, living space based on their gender, based on the color of their skin, based on their religion. We shouldn't tolerate it as a county. And as mayor, I will ensure that we are not tolerating it. And I'll use the bully pulpit to work as hard as I can to ensure that folks in our community are not feeling left behind by any of the ordinances or laws that we pass.
Along those lines, Commissioner, and thank you for your comments. Women of color are particularly hard hit post-COVID. We've always known that single parent head of household, especially women of color, live 88%, I think that's 84%, either in the Alice population or in poverty. Post-COVID, what we've seen is that we know that women of color are caretakers. They are the ones who are caring for elderly family members. We're usually in the service industry in many cases. What do you feel is the state of women of color in South Florida? And what are your hopes and plans that you think will directly affect the conditions of which women of color are living in Miami-Dade County?
Well, I think I need to be just and fair with you. I could not explain to you what the fate of women of color are in our community, because I'm not a woman of color. So it'd be very, very difficult for me to be genuine with you and tell you I understand exactly what the situation is. I will tell you this. I feel very, very strongly that the foundation of families in our community has been disintegrating for a while. I feel very strongly that government has done everything humanly possible, from removing God from our lives in any way possible, whether it's in our public or private space. And I think there are consequences to pay for those kind of things. I do believe strongly that everybody in our community, particularly those that find it even more challenging, and to cite the figures that you're saying, 84 or 88%, that's a staggering number. And so that would ask, where has government failed? Where are the social programs that government across the board, federal, state, and local governments have passed over the years, long before I was an elected official? Where have those programs failed? And should we do away with some of them and reconstruct them in different ways? Because it seems to me that your county government invests money in this space. The state does, the federal government does. Where have we failed then? Where has government failed? And how can it be fixed then? Because it seems to me that just throwing money at the situation is not working. So is it retraining? Is it training opportunities? Is it vocational training? I said earlier, not everybody goes to college. In my own family, I'm blessed with 17 nieces, nephews, and children in my family. And not all of them go to college. Some have gone the route of vocational training so they could get out to the workforce as quickly as possible. Is that what we should be concentrating on? I'm open for advice in areas that I may not be intimately knowledgeable in, so that we could fix these issues. I'm not scared of addressing them or tackling them, but it seems to me that over the years, we have created so many programs that clearly are not meeting the goals that they were intended to accomplish.
Very good points. And when we talk about the benefits cliff, when we talk about when you upskill and look for solutions for especially single head of household moms, and those are the ones that are at that 84%, either at or below the Alice poverty line. That is staggering. It is incredibly staggering. And if we should be focused anywhere, we should be focused there. And I'm looking forward to that conversation to really talk about how has government failed this process? Because we
Yeah.
have to remember that people are whole human beings. If we want a mother to stop working in order to get upskilled, we have to make sure that she can take care of her family for 14 or 16 weeks while doing that.
No doubt about it. And I want you to know that I'm not insensitive to this. My sister is a single mom. She raised 4 children on her own because her husband was had more a love for crack cocaine than he did for his family. And I saw my sister struggle, and we had to do kind of like a cocoon. And I'm the oldest of 5, and there's 3 men in my family, and we had to at times be role models and surrogate dads for the boys that my sister had, so that we could mentor and shepherd with them. And so I'm not immune to the idea that there are women out there that have to carry the brunt of raising their children, because many times men are cowards and disappear from the picture. I've seen this also in special needs communities. The immense amount of mothers who are raising their autistic kids or others by themselves because there are no men to be around. And that's a failure on us as men not to hold up our responsibility. And again, I'd like to see the government programs that have been created in the past to help here. Where have they failed? Have they just been created to say they created something and then they don't have the good outcomes? Because if that's the case, and I tell you what, we need to collaborate to fix that problem.
Yeah, we definitely need to. And that's a whole other Oprah show that I know a lot of folks on this chat would love to have with you, because it is about collaboration and a holistic approach. Programs and the way that they're funded today like to fund one outcome or 2 outcomes in a specific area, as if people are singular issue human beings. And we know that that's not the case. We have to be client-centric. So as I said, that's a whole other Oprah show we'll get to, Commissioner, at some other time, okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Let's keep moving because we only have a few more minutes. Recently, I don't know if this was recently, actually, during a WLRN interview, you said that you...
Oh, she's freezing up on me.
Kerry-Ann,
work in the best way possible.
Kerry-Ann, repeat the
I'm
question.
sorry?
Repeat the question, you cut out.
Oh, that's the blessing of internet. Forgive me. It's been happening a lot lately. So I'll repeat the question. During a WLRN interview, you said as mayor, you would support the commission's decision in favor of the police review panel and will work to make sure it's implemented and working in the best way possible. In your view, are there additional steps that should be taken to curb any violence that is systemically racist in our community?
As it relates to police?
As it relates to police, as it relates to firearms, as it relates to, the any kind of violent exposures that are systemic in our communities?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And I would tell you, look, as a mayor, not only, and I'll double down, I think it's important that IRP work for its intended purpose, which is to promote better relationships with our police and our community. I know that our police department, the vast majority of them, want that kind of relationship so they could be effective. I feel very strongly about safety and security. I think safety and security is the foundation for economic development. And, I'll show you a safe and secure neighborhood and you'll see economic investment and you'll see job creation. And I think that's, for me, is extremely important that we make that investment. I also think there could be some reforms we do to our police department that are not maybe the ones many think. I believe in many instances, our police department, part of their training, doesn't account for, situations related to mental health, from the standpoint that, just think through this with me for a second. A police officer could just roll up on a scene where there's a child there that has been decapitated due to an accident. And we have to understand that has an impact on that officer. And in many instances, those officers are put right back onto the street and continue to patrol. There is no intervention that might be able to remove him or her off the street for a bit so they could kind of reconcile what they've just seen. And these things add up. We've seen a lot of police officers after they retire, either end up in divorce or alcoholism, suicide. And I think, what they're doing on a daily basis needs to be evaluated, and we need to be able to support it. At the same time, I would tell you that, if there's a bad cop on the force, as mayor, we're going to get rid of bad cops. And the police know who the bad cops are. For the most part, police officers are doing work that, to serve the community. And I want to be able to support that and make sure that they're doing the job that we want them to do, which is, again, promote safety. Conversations that I've had in many of the neighborhoods that people want more police. They don't want less police. They want more police. They want more safety. The children in your neighborhood should be able to play in front of their home as well in the backyard in safe and security, not worried about somebody doing a drive-by. And at the same time, I would tell you, we need to, as a community, address the issue of violence among our own children. I grew up in a time where we didn't settle issues with, pulling out a gun. And today, it seems to me that that's the end all to all the situations, strife in our community. We got kids killing each other. And, we shouldn't tolerate it in Hialeah, in Liberty City, in Brownsville, in Miami Beach. We shouldn't tolerate it, period. And to me, when I was a chairman, we worked on this issue, blue and brown programs, so that we could collaborate our departments, community policing, shot spotter in our neighborhoods, so we could identify where somebody discharged a gun. I treated this very seriously, as if it was happening in my neighborhood, because I don't want it happening in somebody else's neighborhood. We buried too many kids at this point that have, never lived to fulfill their potential. And that should be, that doesn't speak well on all of us as a society. And as mayor, this is a front burner issue as far as I'm concerned.
True. And I do want to emphasize, Mayor, that, or if you become mayor.
You can call me that, Kerry-Ann. It's okay.
Let's wait another week or so. Let's make that official. But
okay.
Good luck to you in your race. And I definitely want to emphasize that we in the community believe that the issues are much larger than policing. We believe that neighborhoods should feel safe, and a lot of that has to do with how kids are raised, with the opportunities that their families have for economic stability, with the mentors that are in their lives. And we believe sometimes we've gotten to a point where, skipping school, not finishing an assignment, cussing out a teacher even becomes something that requires, and now, almost becomes a default for policing. And that's where we have to, as a community, start to respond in some different ways to be, as you say, front burner. It's a front burner issue, but it starts from way, way back there. So there's a lot of relationship repairs that need to be done. We have some questions from the audience.
Yes, yes.
And I will take those. Where do I find those, ladies?
We are going to invite them to come off.
Inviting the audience to ask any questions that you may have. And while you do that, I'm going to ask you a pretty interesting question there, Commissioner Bovo. Okay. What do you like about the other two candidates in this race with you? Tell us something you like about them.
Well, there's only just one of us. It's me and Commissioner Cava at this point. So, yeah, we've kind of navigated. It's okay. We've kind of navigated the field, and just us two. Look, I think she's fantastic for as a social service provider. I think she's really cut her teeth in that space, and I think she's got a lot of respect from a lot of folks in the social service end of our community, and so I respect her. I respect the work that she's done. We just don't see eye to eye on a lot of issues on how we address issues. I'm more built of the DNA of personal responsibility. My dad drilled in me as the oldest of five that we had to own issues in our life, and that's why when we have these kind of conversations, I appreciate that you give me the ability to be unfiltered with you and talk about these things, because the last thing I think you all want is somebody just to come here and pander to you and then not fulfill anything that they say they're going to do. On the contrary, I'd rather know what I could work on, where we find things in common. And the things that we don't find in common, it doesn't make us enemies. On the contrary, I think it gives us some space that we could, kind of work towards something, because obviously, you know, we all want to live in a better place. All of us, every single one of us probably share the desire to have economic opportunity, raise our kids the right way. You know, many of us, at least me, I don't want government dictating my life, but I do want it to be an asset and a help when we need it. And I found that to be the same. You know, I don't have any personal issues with my opponent. On the contrary, I admire the fact that she wants to serve. I hope she admires the fact that I want to serve our community. We just don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. That's all.
I think if we are able to continue to create spaces where we can listen to each other and understand our differences and learn from each other, I can tell you that the adage of pulling up your bootstraps and taking control of your life resonates very differently for people of different opportunities. There is a level of privilege that they are not allowed and they're not used to. And there is a level of trust that needs to continue to be built. And I do believe that we can, and we have the opportunity to continue to build that together. And frankly, we have the responsibility to do so.
I think so.
So I'll take one last question. Were you saying?
Mr. Daniel is here to ask a question.
Oh, Mr. Daniel, please join us. I'm sorry, I was looking for your question in the typed comments. I didn't realize you were on screen. Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, I may have a different way of phrasing some of my questions, but I have a couple things for Mr. Cabo. This campaign.
Not Mr. Cabo, not Mr. Cabo.
I mean, Mr. Cabo, Mr. Bovo. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Mr. Bovo.
That sounded like a hybrid between me and Daniela.
No, I don't want to put you with Daniela because I admire Daniela and I work with her closely. I know her very well.
Good.
And that brings me to my question about the campaign and a lot of things that have been put out there about her. It seems like in this community, it's such an easy thing to point people as being socialist or communist, particularly when it comes to people that work in the realm around social service issues and particularly for African Americans. And we have people that you know, including your family, who go on radio talking about Black Lives Matter being communist, being socialist. And I want to know, is this the kind of environment that we're trying to promote?
Well, first of all, let me correct you. There's nobody in my family that's gone on radio talk about Black Lives Matter. No one has. And if you find it on radio, show it to me because nobody's done it.
Okay.
What you saw as a Facebook page of my brother who spends his life mentoring and coaching kids football. Many of those kids are African-American kids, and he's apologized for his involvement in a Black Lives Matter page of which he knew nothing about. My brother's not political. What my brother knows is sports. And what he does is hang out with kids all day long, mentoring them and teaching them football. And he apologized to the families of those folks that he mentors, which he felt obligated to do. And I'm glad he did it. Now, let me be clear on something, because you and I are going to probably disagree here, but it's okay. The Black Lives Matter movement, not Black Lives Matter, because your life matters. I believe your life matters as much as my life matters. But the Black Lives Matter movement has advocated for issues that, whether you like it or not, are based in DNA that is communist. Not only with the Maduro organization or the Maduro government in Venezuela, but they've also praised Che Guevara, who, by the way, spent his life killing Cubans while he was in Cuba, and all kinds of Cubans. He didn't matter. So we will differ. What I have seen out on the streets of America in the name of Black Lives Matter is a bunch of white kids throwing Molotov cocktails at people that have nothing to do with systemic racism or even pushing into a positive direction the conversation about race. That's what I've seen out there. And for those to deny that, then maybe they're not watching the same things I'm watching. But I've been watching these demonstrations over and over and over again. And what I see again is a lot of white kids that are out there with a liberal, radical mentality using the Black Lives Matter moniker to advance their agenda. And their agenda is against the United States of America.
Well, you also made the statement that the Black Lives Matter movement kind of gravitates towards socialist and communist tendencies. And I just want to correct you about the fact Black folks is who built this country. And you all have been allowed to come into Dade County and continue to disrespect Black folks, whether it be in housing, whether it be
Okay,
in
all right. Well, look,
programming.
I'm not on this thing to debate with you. You
Well,
and I
we're
are
not
not gonna have,
debating,
we're not
but
gonna
you
agree.
know, we're not
We're not
debating.
gonna agree.
We're
We
not,
not
well,
gonna
it's not
agree.
about that. Can I
hold
finish
on,
my question?
gentlemen,
Because
gentlemen.
the fact is, Black folks are getting the short end of the stick in Dade County, and they're being disrespected by your people, whether it be in housing, whether it be in jobs. You know, you talk about being bilingual, yet we can't get jobs because we don't speak a certain language. Well, why aren't the people who are being hired bilingual? Why,
Mr.
when you talk
Daniel.
about the housing situation, when if I call into Kendall to rent an apartment, if I don't speak Spanish, I can't get a chance to live there.
Well, that's wrong. You know, I don't know who you've called in
These
Kendall.
are not made up situations. You know it happened.
I'm not saying that they are made up, but I'm going to tell you right now. And I said this earlier. If somebody has been discriminated against in our community, I will be the tip of the spear on issues like this. So if you call to rent an apartment and somebody denied you that rent because you didn't speak Spanish, that is outrageous and should not be tolerated. Should be not tolerated. Now, I don't know what the term is, your people. Okay, I'm a resident of Miami-Dade County. I'm born in the United States of America, so I don't know who you people are, and I'm not going to refer to you in those kind of terms. Obviously, we disagree. You're a Cava supporter, and that's okay. That's all fine. That's why we live in a democracy. Okay, what I have advocated from the very beginning is to be a government that's just for everybody, And I know the limitations of county government. And if we're going to insist on county government being more than it should be, it will fail. It will fail everybody. And that's what I want to ensure, that it does not fail.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Commissioner, thank you for your time. Mr. Daniel, thank you for your questions. Again, we believe in democratic debate. We believe in sharing views, and we thank you. And I see you're still in transit. That means you're in Miami traffic. And we hope to once again be able to do this in the future. We know we have Daniela coming up soon, and we're talking to Gypsy Metellus tomorrow. And I hope you all have a very good evening. We are at time. We're actually past time. Good luck next week, Commissioner. And regardless of the outcome, we look forward to working with you in Miami-Dade County.
Absolutely. Thank you all for the opportunity. Appreciate it, and be safe.
You have a good evening. Bye-bye.